All right, so we're going to look at tuning out the noise in this image. I have an old Apple laptop. It's very old, it's very slow, but that's kind of nice to... If I was doing this on my PC, I have a bunch of graphics cards strung together and it's like super quick. So I don't even have to worry about this stuff so much. But it's good to know, especially if you're on a slower machine. So let's see here. First, I'm going to grab my light, and I find it can be handy to turn this up to 2 or 3, especially with area lights. Any more than that, I don't really see any improvement. Next thing we're going to do when we're looking at noise is just to select a little part of the image. And what's nice is that just kind of lets it update a little faster, so we can see what we're doing faster. Let's see here. I've asked everybody to just use the base property of a Arnold standard surface. So if you ever want to see what material is applied to something, you can just grab it in the viewport, hit this. Okay. Grab it in the viewport, hit that, and see there's our matte white. Trusty matte white, and it's just white, no other parameters. So that means specular, transmission, all this stuff is not being used. All right. So I'm going to turn all that off. One thing that I might turn up, though, is just the diffuse trace depth. So by adding more bounces, you're letting the light kind of bounce around the scene, and it just looks a little bit more realistic and rich and better. Let's see. Okay. So AA is the anti-aliasing, and what it does is it multiplies all these other parameters. So ideally you want to keep your AA as low as you can and then tune out the noise in the parameter of the image where the noise exists. And we're going to look at specular and transmission and all this stuff later, but for now we know, okay, the anti-aliasing looks okay. So I know that the noise is in the diffuse channel of the image. And here we can even do something like this. Get rid of all this for now. Let's see, diffuse. All right. Render, update full scene, diffuse. Right, so our beauty and our diffuse are the same because there's no other components to the shader at the moment. All right, turn that back off. So let's see what happens if I start boosting that up. Maybe that's a little aggro. See some results here. All right, Arnold's acting a little flaky. I'm gonna save my scene, quit Maya, and come back. All right, so I'm back. Let's see here. 50%. Go. Find a nice little spot for tuning. All right, so that's already way better than it was, but we can still do more. And every time we add a number, we're actually adding a lot more rays. So watch what happens. If I go from 6 to 7, see we added like 100 more. But you know, it's the more samples, the slower the render, the better the fidelity of the image. That's kind of the game we're playing here. But it's getting much, 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 much better. All right, so another tool in our arsenal are these imagers. And so everything I'm telling you right now is just for the CPU. The GPU is a little different. Some of these imagers work, some of these AOVs work and don't work. It's just CPU. So one of the differences between a renderer like Mental Ray from back in the day and Redshift is they are biased renderers, meaning they will send samples into the scene and then blend the samples out to even them out. So that makes them much faster, but then sometimes there's artifacts that manifest themselves in that interpolation. Whereas, I'm sure I'm bastardizing this, but Mental Ray is brute force. It just shoots tons and tons of rays, and you just keep adding more until the image resolves itself. But you can do bias type rendering in Mental Ray. And part of the way you do that is this, denoiser noise, which is an denoiser, right? It's a post effect that you can put on your render. And you know, it does a pretty nice job. If the image is in pretty good shape and there's that last 10, 20% you want to just tune out of there, it comes out really, really nice. So let's even, we'll do 100%. And there's our image. I could store a snapshot or I could just turn it off. And just go like that. And there's the difference, right? So view, store snapshot, turn this back on, and that'll just run that. See? Now, like I said, it's interpolating. So it's blending it out. If there's not enough detail in there, this will just make your render look kind of splotchy. So for example, if I just turn this fidelity down, you're going to see the splotchiness a lot worse. See, that looks pretty dodgy, right? So it's not a silver bullet, but it does help that last 10, 20%.